All right. Trump made another round of cabinet picks over these past couple of days. Trump picks Cantor Fitzgerald CEO Howard Lutnick to be Commerce Secretary. President-elect Donald Trump said Tuesday that he will nominate key transition advisor and billionaire financial services executive Howard Lutnick to lead the Commerce Department. He will lead our tariff and trade agenda with additional direct responsibility for the Office of the United States Trade Representative, Trump said in a statement announcing the pick. The Cantor Fitzgerald CEO has led and been the public face of Trump's transition, so he has had a say in who else has gotten jobs, which more on that a little bit later. It's not clear yet what his selection for a cabinet post would mean for his role in the transition going forward. As co-chair of Trump's transition, Lutnick has been an outspoken advocate for his agenda, including explaining how the president-elect plans to use tariffs once in office. Lutnick is the CEO and chairman of the financial services titan Cantor Fitzgerald. The Commerce Department will play a key role in executing some of Trump's proposed tariffs on goods imported into the United States. So here he is giving a version of economic history, shall we say, at the Madison Square Garden rally.
Was America great? At the turn of the century, our economy was rocking. This is 1900, 125 years ago. We had no income tax. And all we had was tariffs.
So what that means for the people in the audience is that billionaires like him don't pay an income tax.
Yep.
Neither do you. But of course, look how many of you there are, and there's only one of him in this room. That tax gets passed along to all of you if you use tariffs as a substitute for the income tax.
Right.
And even
It's a
Republicans are
regressive
saying
tax.
that's regressive. Yes.
And what he's not telling you is we have a name for this period. It's called the Gilded Age.
Right.
And it's a time that is characterized by grotesque wealth inequality, very much like our own. So if, as he's tacitly suggesting here, this would create an economy that works better for average working people, then why was there such grotesque wealth inequality during this period? Because if you don't use the tax system to restrain guys like this, they're going to accumulate so much capital. And with that capital, they're going to accumulate so much power, they're going to crush you. Now, we've kind of come back to the same place. Now, that really starts with Reagan's tax cuts on the wealthy. That's when they start once again after a long period of, it's not that you ever had a time where rich people didn't have the ear of power, but there was a counterbalance from the middle class, which is now devastated, and from workers who were represented through their unions. Once Reagan instituted those tax cuts, the wealth got funneled to the top and got translated into political power, so that now we're back very much to the circumstances of the Gilded Age.
That's right. That's right. All right,
So now what he's describing is, you know what? What's been going on since Reagan? Let's just go all the way with it. Right. Let's just have no taxes on guys like me. No, it'll be good for you. Trust me.
Yep.
All we had was tariffs. And we had so much money that we had the greatest businessmen
right.
of America
People like
get
you
together
had
and try
so
to
much
figure
money.
out how to spend it. That's who we
people
were
like
then.
J.P. Morgan.
But then
Yes,
we had
that's
World
true.
War I and we had World War II. And we felt we had a duty to rebuild the rest of the world. So here's what we did. We took down our protection. We took down our tariffs. And we turned instead and we taxed Americans so that we could export the power of our economy and save the rest of the world, which we did.
Okay.
Yeah, this is complete and total bullshit, and this is where this comes in, if this is a good juncture. All right, so I would highly recommend this. A lot of us absorb this idea Well, probably not our audience, smarter than the average bear. But the idea that the Marshall Plan was this idealistic gesture. No, well, it's hard to have a capitalist economy and a manufacturing base when you have no one to sell your goods to. So we took advantage of the situation to expand our markets and to make the dollar the reserve currency that these countries we were rebuilding would be buying our goods in. So this
And
is a
one just very brief thing. Sorry, I'm not going to derail this, but it
Mhm.
was also a plan to stop the spread of communism. We wanted to make sure that
Right.
communism did
Yes.
not expand past the Iron Curtain. And since a lot of these European economies were devastated, we were very afraid that that's the direction we would go if we didn't boost them. So we needed to save capitalism using our socialism so that they didn't go communist.
Well, and also Nazis that we left behind working for our intelligence services. So for the dollar to be the apple of everyone's eye at the fixed exchange rates the Bretton Woods system guaranteed, what he's talking about is at this time, these currencies were pegged to the value of the dollar, which in turn was pegged to the value of gold.
Right.
Which was denominated in dollars, very much like the petrodollar today. America had to be a surplus amassing country, meaning it had to sell more goods and services to the rest of the world than it imported. Of course, selling goods to the Europeans and Japanese was more than just a bonus outcome. It was how the techno structure, that's how he describes kind of the PMC run, what we would call technocracy that comes in with the New Deal. He calls it the techno structure, would secure for itself the vast new markets it needed to sustain its industries and keep its economy growing. But the whole system also relied on this surplus integrally, for it was what ensured that the dollars printed by the Federal Reserve, America's central bank, and given to the Europeans and to the Japanese, either as loans or aid, would ultimately find their way back to the United States in return for U.S. goods. With every Boeing jet or General Electric washing machine sold to the Europeans, a bundle of dollars would head back across the Atlantic. And as long as migratory dollars were gravitating back home, the dollar would remain a steal at the given exchange rate, guaranteeing that the Germans, the British, the French, the Japanese, even the Greeks wanted to get many more dollars for their funny money than the authorities allowed them at the official exchange rates. As long as America was the major surplus nation, Bretton Woods was safe as houses. And that's why by the late 1960s, the Bretton Woods system was dead in the water. And he gets into really explaining how all of this is tied to why wages have been stagnant since Nixon went off the gold standard. He explains, okay, so we no longer had a trade surplus, we had a trade deficit. So how do you keep these dollars coming back to the United States when German manufacturing, Japanese manufacturing now exceeds ours in efficiency and profitability? Well, to make our corporations so profitable that these dollars keep coming back, only now they come back to Wall Street. They don't come in the form of direct investment. Well, you have to make our corporations profitable on another basis by cutting wages.
Right. Yep.
So highly recommend. And what he's telling you is total bullshit.
All right. Well, he finishes up.
Now let me ask you a question. What decade should that have ended?
By that, he means this era of altruism where we, out of the kindness of our hearts, rebuilt Europe.
Should it have ended in the 80s? The 90s? 2000? What in the world are we doing? We're letting the rest of the world eat our lunch. And it is time to make America great again.
No. This guy, I'm sorry, man. I mean, anyone who thinks Trump is coming in to help you, look at this guy. You think this guy gives a fuck about you? You think he cares about you? He's coming from Cantor Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
That does that look like fighting the hedge funds, fighting Wall Street to you? He's gonna come in and he's gonna do what's good for him and its class. It's Reaganomics on steroids.
Yes. So much so that some Republicans are leery of trying to pay for tax cuts with Trump's tariffs. So, Semaphore reports Donald Trump may be interested in using steep new tariffs to pay for tax cuts next year, an idea that would force Congress to vote on his aggressive trade agenda. Republican lawmakers, however, are far from sold. Some are already panning the prospect. I don't like tariffs. Number one, I think the consumer pays them, so they're regressive. They're a sales tax, basically. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul told Semaphore. Now, if your economic theory is too regressive for Rand Paul, you may want to think twice about it. Adding that he'd still listen to the idea, even though I kind of doubt tariffs would make it into a GOP tax bill. As Republicans prepare to take control of both chambers of Congress in January, they're weighing whether to formalize Trump's tariff regime as part of a bill that would extend tax cuts they passed during his first term. The decision pits the party's free trade orthodoxy against its new populist impulses under the president-elect, who has floated a 10% across-the-board tariff and more targeted tariffs on everything from Chinese goods to John Deere tractors. Okay, I just have to quibble slightly. There's nothing populist about using tariffs to finance tax cuts for the rich. If you're going to use tariffs to finance a popular program, that's one thing. You can have that conversation in addition to income taxes on rich people. You're talking about doing away with taxes for rich people and paying for that with tariffs. That's not populist at all. That's anti-populist. You are making the many bear the cost of a tax cut for the rich. There's nothing populist about that. Trump's broad tariffs could bring in trillions of dollars to help extend the tax cuts and potentially pay for some of the many new tax promises he made during the campaign. But such sweeping tariffs also would raise consumer prices while possibly failing to raise the revenue Republicans would need in order to vote for new levies on foreign goods, which explains why senior members of the party are treading very carefully around the idea of paying for tax cuts with tariffs. Again, these tariffs are being floated to replace taxes for people like Howard Lutnick. That's what they're being proposed to pay for. Senator Mike Crapo, that's a great name. I wonder how impressive. He must be a talented politician to actually win a Senate seat with a name like Crapo. Mike Crapo from Idaho, the incoming Finance Committee chairman, says he's not working on any such proposal right now. He should run for president. I mean, if he's talented enough to get elected with a name like Crapo, he must be pretty good. Incoming Senate GOP leader John Thune said it's a novel idea to raise revenue for tax cuts, but only one of many options. The question is, what are the other implications of doing that? Don't forget, these are the same people who say we can't raise the minimum wage because it's going to drive up costs. These people are literally willing to implement a 10% sales tax on everyone to pay for tax cuts for the rich. But the minimum wage, no, that'll drive prices up too much. Again.
Well, and this is how abstract and Wall Street based the economy is. That's why they don't care about the fact that at that point, how are consumers going to buy goods?
Right.
It's all just a Wall Street game at this point. Why is Bitcoin worth anything? Much less approaching $100,000, because the whole market is speculative. It's all conceptual. It's like the modern art stock market.
Yeah,
it's worth
like
what you think it's worth.
To the wall.
Yeah, it's meaningless. I sent that to Keaton. We might do that story on Sunday because it's such an extreme example of well, the theory behind Reaganomics and this newfangled version of what is essentially Reaganomics is the richer you make these guys, the better for you. Well, look at how they spend that money. $1 million for a banana taped to a wall. That's what they spend that money on. That's where your money's going. It's not going into creating new jobs.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Some Republicans said tariffs can be used constructively to push foreign countries on specific policy issues, but that Congress should not use them as a piggy bank. Okay, so this is another sort of facet of the Howard Lutnick story, because this was put out by Jewish Insider on November 4th, 2024. So this was before Donald Trump won a second term, but Howard Lutnick, the pro-Israel champion, leading Trump's transition team. So he was tasked with filling out the cabinet, or at least, you know, playing a large role in advising Trump on who to pick for certain posts, even before Trump won. And so now we're going to get some insight into who he is and who is running the Trump transition team. And it'll all make sense. It'll all make pretty good sense to you by the time we are done with this. This is not long, but it is revealing. In recent months, Howard Lutnick, the billionaire financial executive, has emerged as one of former President Donald Trump's top boosters and closest advisors. He has helped corral support among Wall Street donors, appeared frequently on cable news to promote the campaign, and earned a leading role on the transition team, whereas co-chair, he has been tasked with overseeing personnel for a potential second Trump administration. Lutnick, 63, maintained a lower political profile before the election and contributed to both parties. He has cited a range of reasons for more actively supporting Trump, a longtime friend, including his policies on immigration, cryptocurrency, and tariffs on imported goods, an unusual preference for a Wall Street veteran who has identified as a fiscal conservative. But the Jewish Republican has also indicated that his long-standing commitment to Israel's security is one of the top reasons he is now so enthusiastically aligning with Trump, particularly after Hamas's October 7th attacks, which the former president has repeatedly claimed would never have happened if he had won a second term. Lutnick has said that his decision to become more engaged in Trump's re-election crystallized for him in the immediate aftermath of the attacks. He had clear moral clarity when it came to Israel and what happened, and the way that he thought about what happened, Lutnick explained in an interview with the Philadelphia Inquirer last month. That was huge to me. While Lutnick donated to Vice President Kamala Harris's 2016 Senate campaign, he attributed the contribution to his wife, noting that she had since moved over to Donald Trump, which is unusual for her because she says Israel is her number one policy, he said in an interview with Bloomberg this summer. The former president literally sat down with my wife and said, "I will be the best president for Israel. I will protect Israel and take care of them," Lutnick recounted. So even in my house, we have unanimity around Donald Trump. Michael Tracy, who has been very, very good at finding receipts as these Trump cabinet appointees come in. Yeah. Here he is. He plucked this one out of the MSG rally. Trump's new pick for Commerce Secretary literally screamed at the pre-election Madison Square Garden rally that the foremost reason to elect Trump was that we must crush jihad.
So the first thing, we must elect Donald J. Trump president, because we must crush jihad.
All right, now this is even now you talk about a bitch. You talk about him making a bitch of himself. Michael Tracy tweets out here, Trump and his transition chairman Howard Lutnick commemorated October 7th, this is the 1-year anniversary of the attack, by paying homage at the tomb of Rabbi Schneerson, the leader of the Chabad movement, who died in 1994. Yeah, I don't get the pronunciation right on those. I didn't go to Hebrew school like you do. How do you say it?
Briefly. Chabad.
Chabad. Sorry. I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm catching a little bit of a cold from my son, so that would have been hard anyway. Who died in 1994 and is still regarded by many of his followers as the Messiah. So, yeah, there's this weird cult of Rabbi Schneerson, yeah. And this is how Trump spent the day commemorating the October 7th attacks. Here's some video of this event. Now, nothing much is said here, but there's Lutnick to Trump's left, our right. And there's Trump pretending to be very affected by what's going on here. Reading something, pretend to care. Now, see, this is why you really have to be cucked to do this, because and this is what, like, okay, so
cat
look.
Was named Vagina.
Whatever that is. Okay.
Superstitious nonsense.
Yeah, whatever bullshit
now.
they're making them do. Okay, so look, there is no doubt in my mind that Howard Lutnick knows that Donald Trump couldn't give a shit about any of this. Like, there's nothing Trump could care less about than whatever he's pretending is this solemn occasion here. Mm-hmm. Howard Lutnick knows he's putting Trump through a humiliation ritual. He knows that Trump coming here and going through these motions is a way of Trump telling him, I am in your pocket. I will do what you want. I am working for you. That's what this is. That's clearly what this is. I mean, Donald Trump gives a shit about this. Donald Trump knows a lick about this. Of course not. It's ridiculous. They put him through this as a means of expressing fealty to the Israel cause. And what has happened? How have his cabinet picks shaped up? Exactly as you would predict, given this level of bitchery on display from Donald Trump in this video here. Anything to add before we continue? We only got one more piece. Right, Anya Parampil, it's clear that Howard Lutnick and Miriam Adelson have more influence over Trump's cabinet picks than anyone else, even Don Jr., and they are making their selections in the interest of Israel, not the United States. How does it feel, Americans? Sorry, that's the last exhibit. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is why, predictably, you have a lot of people who jumped right on board when people like us would criticize people who supported certain policies that they thought Harris would institute and were willing to accept a genocide in exchange. And yet you're seeing a lot of people who love that critique who are essentially doing that now. As I've said, the MAGA association with Zionism, that is really from the top. That is not my experience of actual people who supported Donald Trump. Very, very few have I ever encountered who supported this, who didn't find this as repulsive as we do. Okay, so are you going to do what those Harris supporters did? Are you going to decide, well, you know what? I'm less worried today about them Child Protective Services turning my son into a girl than I was yesterday. So, what's a little genocide? Are you going to do that? Are you going to do that? Or are you, as we have pointed out, Trump is sensitive to his popularity. Not going to listen. Not going to listen to us, a couple lefties. It's up to you. It's on you guys, man. You got to say something about this. Don't tell me you like this. And don't tell me that Trump is a strong leader. He is not a strong leader. He is. It was a problem when Citibank picked Obama's cabinet, right? Everybody talked about it. Certainly MAGA folks who were aware of it have talked about that for years, as have we. You don't think Miriam Adelson picked his cabinet? Look at how this cabinet is shaping up. You don't think he's being told what to do?
And this guy, Howard Lutnick, he's the head of the transition team.
You're talking about a loony cult within Judaism that believes that this Rebbe was the Messiah, which, now he's dead. It's kind of hard to maintain that, but they do. You go out there to Crown Heights. I know where this is. They preserve his house.
He spent 35 years in the ground before he was resurrected.
Right. He's no, because I went over there because somebody asked me. Generally, I would not do a tour that I'm going to rarely get asked to do because it's a lot of research to put together a tour. But somebody asked me to do a tour of Hasidic Brooklyn. And I was like, man, that's so weird. That's such a weird subject. I'll do it because I'm interested enough
just to have the
research.
Knowledge anyway. Right.
So one of these guys saw me walking around with a notebook and asked me what I was doing. I told him. He took me for a whole behind the scenes tour into the Rebbe's house. He took me all over the area, pointing out the different sites that are significant to them.
Down into the tunnels.
Down into the tunnels. I'm not allowed to talk about that. He told me that's only for the VIP tours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Down into the tunnel. No. The place where you saw in that video, I've been there. I've been in that room where, the tunnels are. That's like medieval. You go in that room and it's all the rabbinical students debating all day. Right. So you go in there, it's just the echoes of people debating Talmud and debating the Torah. Hundreds of people just debating.
Right.
But yeah, like this is your president, your strong leader. He's bending the knee to a nutty cult within Judaism.
Yeah. And the one thing
this
I'll add
isn't
to
even
this,
like mainstream Judaism. This is like
sure,
a
of course.
weird cultish sect within
Yeah.
Judaism.
Yeah, and just to what you said before, in terms of, exchanging a policy aim for it, basically tolerating a genocide so you get a certain policy aim of yours satisfied. This formulation, and we've seen a lot of people make it, that, well, the Palestinians are just screwed anyway, no matter who wins. So we may as well vote on other matters, or we may as well support or not support candidates based on other things. It is exactly that formulation that led to genocide. It is exactly that indifference to the oppression of the Palestinian people that led to this disaster right now. It's that. It's saying, well, either way, we're just going to take as a given that their fate is sealed and that they were born to suffer and that through accident of birth inside an open-air concentration camp, these people are doomed to a lifetime of suffering. That is what led to this. That is what led to this. And that, in my opinion, has to stop. And it stops when it comes to evaluating Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. It stops when it comes to evaluating Trump. Like it's the same thing.
Of course.
It's the same
of course.
principle
And
in both directions.
If you're going to run around being like, oh, yeah, look at Elon and Vivek. They're going to own the deep state. And you got nothing to say about this? I'm sorry, man. I didn't respect that from the Harris people. I don't respect that from MAGA people. I don't respect that from anybody. Okay, your man is in now. Speak out.
Right.
Try to have some influence.
Exactly.
Please clap.